Anybody? Issue?
Transfers, sir. Transfers.
Transfers, okay.
Transfers, sir, we can make a somewhat a confirmed period of 3 years or around permanent stay at a particular place without any hindrance or political intervention.
So tenure issues in civil service. Okay. What do you mean by that? So how would you like to frame it? Arbitrariness, right? Okay. Coordination problems. Political interference. Anything else? How many of you have seen Yes Minister series or read the book? Yes Minister, Yes Prime Minister? Okay. Series. Could you tell us something about that? Your impressions of that? So, does it ring a bell? Has it any relevance to India? Pardon? No, forget the film and all that, but the theme, is there resonance in India? Yes, Minister, yes, Prime Minister, I think you should all watch and read. If nothing else, it's good fun. It's clean, good fun. It also makes us think a great deal about this relationship between the politician and the bureaucrat. In that series, famously, Richard Hacker, the minister, and what's the secretary's name? Humphrey Appleby. Nigel Hawthorne, I think, played the role. So, the politician's perception is, look, I am elected, or we are elected to power on the mandate for change, because every election is really about change. And we are elected to power with the hope and expectation on the platform for change. And yet, this bureaucrat is wooden, insensitive, inward-looking, like a permanent priesthood. There's absolutely no concern for the society. Status quoism is the abiding principle. How do I make this bureaucrat deliver is the challenge of the politician. The bureaucrat thinks that the politician is selfish, corrupt, partisan, and short-term oriented, and therefore is a nuisance. How do I minimize the nuisance of the politician? We have two polar opposite images. If you ask actually as part of your training later on, carefully observe what's happening. You will find many of your seniors, the only claim they would have is that, look, I said no to this politician. Look, I'm able to contain this politician. They could never claim any achievement. The only way they measure their accomplishment is, I could say no to this fellow, or I could prevent this fellow from doing this or that. It's become naysay. The truth is obviously much more complicated. We must understand, in any democratic culture, this does not apply to a country like China, because the interests of the bureaucracy and politicians are completely aligned. Or even Singapore, though there is some kind of a democracy, the interests of the two are completely aligned, and they are actually completely interchangeable. It's a defense service fellow and a bureaucrat who becomes a politician, and vice versa. But in a democratic society, there is always a clash between two things. One is, if you want to pursue the right kind of policy, the short-term political price. Take the example of international price of petroleum products rising, and the government being compelled to increase the prices. Is it ever going to be popular in the country? Supposing you are the Prime Minister of the country, you are forced to raise the prices. Is it a happy decision? It will never be popular. Is it a necessary decision? It's absolutely necessary. But to do the right thing for the country, often there is a short-term political price. This will clash with the long-term public good. You want to promote this, you have to pay this price. You want to eliminate this price, then you will compromise on the long-term goals. Oftentimes, it's not always necessary, but often you do have this clash between the short-term political price and the long-term public good. Theoretically, bureaucracy comes in to protect the long-term public good. But in reality, is that what we see all around? The bureaucrat is now a willing and pliant tool, undermining the long-term public good, and oftentimes is an obstructionist in promoting public good in the country. There's a huge problem. Of course, the problems of politics are very well known. We discussed that the other day, if I remember in some detail. We don't have to go into that. But even if you assume that the political process is okay, even if a minister or a government actually are capable of delivering and willing to deliver, you have a problem with the bureaucratic apparatus in the country. The delivery mechanism is simply inadequate. Many of the problems you listed are real, but in a substantive sense, the recruitment. Recruitment, I would say, is pretty good. There could be always improvement, and I'm sure you can write in the examination here and there a bit. But on the whole, the problem of Indian bureaucracy is not at the level of recruitment. We recruit some of the finest and brightest young people into the country into civil services. Within 10 years, we make monkeys out of most of them. The problem is not so much that we're recruiting the wrong people. The problem is we're not giving the right incentives for the people who are recruited. We're not getting the best out of them. Therefore, I would not like you to waste your time on recruitment. This morning, I was going through my commission's report, Administrative Reforms Commission's report, because by the time I left it, when they wrote this report, though we discussed in great detail, I was trying to see what their final recommendations were. They hopped quite a bit on the recruitment. I don't think that's a big issue. You can always bring improvements, but that's not the real challenge of India. The challenge is delivery, the outcomes. The first is, if you take away the first few years of service, there simply is no incentive to excel because there's no competition. Once you have more or less time-bound promotions, once you have rigid seniority and hierarchy as the deciding principles, there is no incentive to really perform better. And in many areas, you don't even have the knowledge and ability. We are not getting the best in the country. If you want to govern the country, for specific sectors, you must get the best in the country. You cannot get somebody because that somebody is already in bureaucracy. In other words, the monopoly enjoyed by civil servants in key positions of government, in my judgment, must go. You cannot retain that monopoly, eliminate competition, and yet get quality. That's true everywhere. That's very much true in civil services also. In other words, in key positions, supposing a person is not automatically promoted, but you actually keep them open to everybody, those in government, those outside the government. And anybody can compete. And there is a process by which for a tenure, let's say of 5 years, the person is recruited. The best are likely to then come in. People may not want to be in bureaucracy forever, but everybody in the country of certain qualities, certain ability and accomplishments has a dream. They want to do something. They want to improve the traffic. They want to improve the public order, the policing, or crime investigation, or healthcare, or education, or skills, or job creation, industrial environment, infrastructure, whatever. They have ideas. They have experience. They have insight. They have knowledge. But they don't know what to do. because we made this public sector and private sector into two impenetrable silos. Supposing you make it easy for people to move from here to there, right there to here. Supposing the best and the brightest, further specific assignment can be picked up on the basis of the background and the qualities and the vision and the dream. And you eliminate the monopoly. Actually, most people will still come from the career bureaucracy, but not everybody. And the fact that there is competition will actually give greater protection to the competent ones, the ones who deliver, and will weed out eventually incompetent ones. So the first principle I would say is this monopoly must give way to some kind of a competition at higher levels. That also means that there must be an exit policy. If people are not particularly good after a certain stage, there must be easy exit policy. You cannot have a person coming in and saying, I know exactly when I'm going to retire. Until that time, no matter which minister comes, which government comes, I am there forever. The third is,
Indian administrative service people, because irrespective of the quality which a post demands, IAS people are appointed across the board. So, which is often a hurdles in the best administrative practice. That is why an IAS officer become the commissioner of the commercial tax in Hyderabad. Usually, then why the IRS people are trained for 2 years for government spending crores of rupees and giving special training. So this monopoly most of the time is largely enjoyed by the IAS people. That system should be changed. What do you think, sir?
You're right. But there is that brings us to the issue of specialization. In this day and age, you cannot have an all-purpose civil service. In fact, the days of IAS are over. If you want to really rebuild this country, you cannot have an all-purpose generalist service taking care of everything under the sun, from commercial taxes to roads and buildings to irrigation to education to healthcare to everything. You have to have specialized civil services. At the time of recruitment, because we have a certain administrative apparatus and administrative boundaries in the country, I can understand you recruit a generalist service to serve for some years. But after some years, let's say 8 or 10 years, there must be mandatory specialization. And that must be unwavering. Once you are assigned to, let's say, social services or education, then your life is in that education sector or healthcare or some other sector. Unless that is enforced, we will get mediocrity getting promoted all the time. Then, once you do that, if monopoly goes, you recruit people for a particular assignment for a tenure, the tenure is automatically guaranteed. Therefore, with that must come autonomy. Once you give the tenure, autonomy. Once the policy is laid down, the budgets are given, the outcomes are decided, then the functionary must be given complete freedom. You cannot, in my judgment, make somebody head of an agency and then second guess him every day. Somebody is the municipal commissioner of Hyderabad city. Now, after that, what he does with his personnel is his business, within the broad sense of what is right and what is wrong. But the government cannot, again, every day say, I'll have you as this fellow deputy commissioner, but not that fellow. I'll transfer this fellow. I'll do something else. This day-to-day manipulation and interference should go. There must be autonomy in order to be able to deliver within reasonable boundaries, as I said. Then comes accountability. For instance, to give autonomy, one of the mechanisms is